Welcome to Fix It Home Improvement, covering projects that every homeowner should know and great products for home and garden.
Hi, I'm JC, and this is where we share weekly home improvement tips. I'm here with my co-host, Cindy.
Hello, JC.
Hi, Cindy. This week, we're going to talk about painting doors, and we'd like to thank Terry Ward for mentioning our podcast in an article she wrote for AARP, and you can check out some of her writing at terryward.com. It's TERRY-WARD.com. In 1887, the International Union of Painters and Allied Trades was formed. To differentiate a union painter from a non-union painter, the union required all of their members to wear white while on a job site.
Interesting.
And they were originally using canvas from ship sails. It was durable, white was cooler when working outside, and white paint was popular in the 1800s, so they looked cleaner. Painting doors in your home is going to take some planning. Are you going to leave the doors in place or remove them and paint them on sawhorses in the garage or basement? Do they need patching or repair? Will you need a primer? And what painting supplies do you need?
Why don't we start with keeping the doors in place?
Okay. I like to remove all the doorknobs and door stops first. It's going to make it faster and easier to paint.
Why?
So you don't have to use painter's tape around the doorknob. And if you don't want to remove the doorknob, you can wrap a piece of aluminum foil around it and then put painter's tape around where the doorknob meets the door and kind of hold that aluminum in place. And when I do remove doorknobs, I also remove the door latch on the edge of the door because it's tedious to tape off the latch completely.
Right.
So it's much faster to roll the edge if you remove the latch.
Okay.
If you're removing doorknobs, you can keep all the parts in Ziploc bags because it's pretty easy to lose the screws.
You know that from experience, do you?
Yes. And if you plan on painting multiple doors at one time, you can use a marker and label each bag for what door the parts go to.
What about the hinges if you're leaving the doors in place?
You can put painter's tape over the hinge on the edge of the door, then use a razor knife all along the edge of the hinge and remove the excess tape, and that'll protect them.
Cool.
Some top-rated painter's tape companies are Frog Tape, F-R-O-G, capital T-A-P-E, Scotch, S-C-O-T-C-H, Duck, D-U-C-K, and 3M. You should put down some type of drop cloth. I prefer a cloth drop cloth because it stays in place. Plastic drop cloths are slippery. They don't absorb paint, so you can end up tracking paint around the house.
Yeah.
Some top-rated cloth drop cloth companies are Chicago, Canvas, and Supply. They started in 1948. White Duck, W-H-I-T-E, capital D-U-C-K, and Trimaco, T-R-I-M-A-C-O. I spoke to White Duck Outdoors about what to look for in a quality cloth drop cloth. They recommended a heavy-duty 100% cotton canvas because they're leak-resistant, tear-resistant, and absorbent. They say look for extra reinforcement on the seams and the edges.
Smart.
Double-stitched edges will help prevent fraying, ripping, and tearing. They're reusable for years and washable.
This is a project that should be done with the windows open?
Yeah, you should have good ventilation for all your painting projects, so it's a good project for spring, summer, and fall. If you have any imperfections in the door, you can use a wood filler, then sand it smooth, vacuum, or wipe the door to remove the sanding dust, and then clean the door to remove oils and dirt. Use a mild detergent or a cleaner like Dawn, Simple Green, or Crud Cutter. Crud Cutter is K-R-U-D, capital K-U-T-T-E-R. And a Scotch-Brite pad is good to scrub off any buildup, and it'll rough up old paint so the new paint sticks better.
Cool.
Consumer Reports recommends a low suds detergent like Spick and Span. They say it cleans well and it rinses off easily, and Spick and Span was invented in 1933.
Wow.
Pretty wild. Once you've cleaned your door, wipe it down a couple of times with a damp cloth to remove any residue. If you're painting a door that wasn't previously painted or you used a filler to patch the door, prime the door. It's going to help the paint stick better, and the paint will have a more uniform look. Some top-rated primers are Zinsser's Bullseye 123 and Kills. Zinsser is Zinsser. Kills is Kilz.
So you wouldn't prime a previously painted door?
If the old paint's in good shape, you've degreased it, then lightly sanded the old paint with a fine sandpaper or a sanding sponge, and then wiped it down, the new paint is going to go on well without priming.
All right. In my parents' house, the bathroom door was painted so many times that in the summer it wouldn't fully close.
Nah, that's funny. In that case...
It wasn't funny. It was terrible.
So if you have a door that has too much paint on it, you can remove the door, put it on sawhorses outside or in the garage and sand it down. I would use an electric palm sander. Start with a coarse grit and work your way up to a fine grit sandpaper. Mm-hmm. If you have a home that was built before 1978 or you think it could have old paint, it could contain lead. Lead is toxic, and exposure to lead dust can cause serious illness. Children and pregnant women should avoid exposure.
Right.
The EPA.gov website has tips on how to safely work with lead paint, and if you don't want to sand it, you can use a paint stripper.
Right.
In older homes, you could have oil-based paint. Oil-based paint was popular for doors through the 1970s. It was very durable and easy to clean, especially oil-based paint with a high-gloss finish. If you cover a door that has a glossy oil paint with a latex paint, it may not form a good bond.
How can you tell if it's an oil-based paint?
You can get a clean rag, wet it with denatured alcohol, acetone, or rubbing alcohol, and rub the old paint. If the paint comes off on the rag, it's latex. If nothing comes off, it's oil, and you should prime the door first before painting it with a latex paint.
Prime it with an oil-based primer or a latex primer?
A good quality latex primer will do a good job. If it's for an exterior door, use a primer like Bullseye 123, which is a water-based primer that can be used inside or outside. You would clean the old door well first, remove any oils and dirt. Bullseye 123 doesn't recommend TSP as a cleaner. They say it can leave a film if it's not rinsed thoroughly.
Okay.
Once you've prepped the door, if it's a slab door, it's very easy to use a roller and roller cover to paint the door. You're going to get a nice finish without brush marks. If you have a door with panels, you'd use a paintbrush to paint all the corners of the panels and then a roller for all the flat surfaces. Some painters will cut in the panels with a brush and then roll all the flat surfaces to cover the area quickly, and then use a paintbrush to smooth that paint in the direction of the grain. Then they roll the stiles and rails around the panels and brush the area in the direction of the grain, and that's going to give it a uniform appearance so any brush marks look like wood grain.
What are the stiles and the rails?
The stiles are the pieces of wood that run vertically around the panels, and the rails are the pieces of wood that run horizontally.
Thank you.
You can use a 1 quart or a 2.5 quart inexpensive plastic container to put your paint in when you're using a paintbrush instead of using the paint can.
Why?
And this is going to keep the paint from filling the grooves on the top of the paint can.
All right.
With your brush. You'd fill the container a quarter or halfway with paint, and then dip your paintbrush only about a third of the way in, then tap the brush on the inside of the container above the paint to remove the excess paint on the brush, but you're still leaving a well-loaded brush. If you have too much paint on your brush, it can cause sags, and it's harder to control.
Mm-hmm.
Use long strokes to leave less brush marks, and keep a wet edge. Do one section at a time and work down the door, moving steadily so you're always working into wet paint.
All right.
Some painters recommend a 3-inch angled brush when you're painting a door with just a brush. For wood doors, paint in the direction of the grain on the panels, stiles, and rails to minimize brush marks, and any brush marks that do show up will mimic the look of the grain. Some painters recommend a 2 or a 2.5 angled brush for doors with panels. You're going to cut in all the corners of the panels, then use a mini roller for all the flat areas of the door, working it into the corners, and that's going to minimize brush marks.
All right.
Some top-rated paintbrush companies are Purdy, P-U-R-D-Y, Wooster, W-O-O-S-T-E-R, and Valspar, V-A-L-S-P-A-R.
What type of roller cover should you use on a door?
Synthetic fabrics like polyester and nylon are good for latex paints. A nap of 3/16 to 1/4 inch is going to give a door a smooth finish.
Nap the thickness?
Right. A standard 9-inch long roller cover will cover flat areas quickly, but a shorter 4-inch roller can be easier to control for panels and the edges of a door. The mini 4-inch rollers are popular and good for cabinet doors too. A mini roller has a smaller diameter.
Right, not just the length.
Bear Paint says stir the paint well before using it to thoroughly mix the colorant. Rinse off a paintbrush so the bristles are clean and damp for latex-based paint. Shake off and rub the brush to remove the excess water. Damp bristles absorb and release paint better when you're starting a project.
Really?
Yeah, interesting. Dip the bottom third of the brush into your paint and dab the brush against the inside of the can to remove excess paint, or tap the edge of the brush on top of the can to allow excess paint on the bristles to drip into the can.
You're doing like the tomahawk chop.
They say dragging it on top of the can can remove too much paint, and it fills the rim on top, making a mess when you put the lid back on the can. Use a high-quality brush with synthetic bristles of nylon or polyester for latex. When painting with a roller, Bear says use painter's tape and press it lightly all over the roller, and that's going to remove any loose fibers. Or you can tape a length of painter's tape to a surface like a countertop, hold it out, and then roll your roller cover over it. Lightly dampen the roller cover with water, then wipe off the excess water with a paper towel. The bottom of a paint tray should be filled with paint, but leave the back angled part of the tray free of paint. That way you can roll off the excess paint, and it's going to help coat the roller evenly. Some top-rated roller covers come from Wooster, W-O-O-S-T-E-R, Behr, B-E-H-R, Purdy, P-U-R-D-Y, and Valspar, V-A-L-S-P-A-R. Use a paintbrush or roller cover marked for latex paint, and use latex paint. It's easier to clean up, easier to work with, and there's less VOCs. For exterior metal doors, though, some painters recommend using an oil paint to help prevent rust.
What about a previously stained door?
You need to sand it well to cut through the polyurethane that's usually used over a stained door. You're going to
clean it?
Yeah, then clean it well, wipe it down, then prime it and paint it.
Cool.
If you're removing doors and putting them on sawhorses, cover the top beams to protect the paint. You can drill pilot holes in the top and bottom of a wood door and screw two 2-inch wood screws on the top and two 2-inch wood screws on the bottom, spaced nicely so that you can set those screws on top of your sawhorses, so you're keeping the door completely off the sawhorse. So it's easy to paint and it's easy to flip over if you have a helper.
Right.
Hyde has painter's pyramids to support a door. They elevate the door off the floor or off plywood that you put on sawhorses. And these are good for cabinet doors too. I've used plastic tile spacers that are dome-shaped to support doors when I was painting them on my sawhorses. And I would just set those on the top beam and then set my doors on top of that.
Wow, fancy.
For exterior doors with glass, you can tape off the glass or just allow any paint that gets on the glass to dry.
Right.
Then you can use a single-edge razor blade to cut into the corners and scrape off the paint.
How much paint will you need to paint a door?
If you're painting just one door, it's going to take about a quart of paint. A door that's 80 inches by 36 inches is about 20 square feet per side. And if you paint both sides with 2 coats of paint, it's about 80 square feet, and 1 quart covers about 100 square feet.
Cool.
Use exterior-grade paint for your entrance doors on the outside of the door, not on the inside. Use interior paint on the inside of an exterior door. Exterior-grade paint is formulated for outside and usually has much higher VOCs than indoor paint. And don't use interior paint outside. It doesn't have additives to protect against UV, mold, and extreme temperature changes.
All right. What are some things to compare when shopping for paint?
I would check to see how long you have to wait before the second coat can be applied. It's usually 1 to 2 hours for latex paint. I would also compare low or no VOCs for indoor paint.
What else should you think about before starting this project?
For exterior doors, you don't want rain in the forecast for a few days. And when you're painting inside, make sure it's a well-ventilated area and paint when the temperature is nice and you have low humidity so you can keep your windows open.
Mm-hmm.
Low humidity is going to allow the paint to dry well and quicker.
Cool.
Some top-rated paint comes from Pratt & Lambert, P-R-A-T-T. Lambert is capital L-A-M-B-E-R-T. Benjamin Moore, B-E-N-J-A-M-I-N, capital M-O-O-R-E. Valspar, Behr, Glidden, G-L-I-D-D-E-N, and Sherwin-Williams, S-H-E-R-W-I-N, capital W-I-L-L-I-A-M-S.
Do you have anything else to add?
If you're painting an exterior door or painting on sawhorses outside, don't paint in direct sunlight if possible. The paint will dry too quickly and show brush marks or roller marks.
Mm-hmm.
If you're removing an exterior door, use plastic and masking tape to cover the doorway, and that's going to prevent insects, bats, rats, cats from getting into your house. There's a company called Zipwall that makes a door kit to cover an opening. It has double back tape and a plastic door with zippers, so you can close off the opening, but you can still come and go easily.
Nice.
And Zipwall is Z-I-P, capital W-A-L-L.
Let's wrap this up.
You can subscribe to the podcast on your favorite podcast app.
If you enjoyed it, please leave us a review.
You can check out our home improvement videos on our YouTube channel, Fix It Home Improvement.
And you can subscribe to that as well.
You can download our ebooks, Home Improvement Solutions, What Every Homeowner Should Know, books 1 through 16 on Amazon.
If you enjoyed it, please leave us a 5-star rating and review.
You can email us at fixitpodcast@gmail.com. You can follow Cindy on Twitter @FixitCohost, and you can follow us on Instagram, Fixit Home Improvement.
Thank you for listening.
Talk to you next week.